Rakeyan Jayabhupati was born into a lineage that carried the weight of royal expectation and sacred duty. His birth was heralded as a divine sign by court astrologers and priests who interpreted celestial alignments as indicating the rise of a wise and noble ruler, all tailored to mold him into a sovereign worthy of his ancestors. It was not merely a title of pride, but a destiny foretold, an emblem of a ruler who was expected to triumph over adversity and uphold dharma. The name Jayabhupati is steeped in Sanskrit roots. Jaya means victory or triumph, while Bhupati refers to a lord or ruler of the earth. His full name could be interpreted as the victorious ruler or the triumphant lord of the land. Jayabhupati was connected to the influential court of Sunda Pakwan, ensured that his son was not only well-versed in the politics of the court, but also initiated into the spiritual wisdom of Shaivism and Buddhism. His early life was marked by learning, discipline. Jayabhupati was trained by the finest teachers in the realms of governance. He was made to study the Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. This curriculum made him conscious of his role not only as a temporal leader, but also as a spiritual protector of his land and people, traits that would later make him a just and popular king. By the time Jayabhupati came of age, saw in him a figure who would uphold their prestige and protect the sanctity of sacred texts and practices. His early devotion to Shiva and his strict adherence to Hindu orthodoxy would become prominent themes throughout his reign. They would bloom into one of the most culturally significant reigns in the early Sunda kingdom. Rakeyan Jayabhupati hailed from a noble lineage that had its roots deeply embedded in the heart of the Sunda and Galu royal tradition. He was likely a direct descendant of the prominent Rakeyan rulers who governed with the ideals of dharma, regional unity, and cultural flowering. His ancestry might be traced back to the fusion of the ruling houses of Galu and Sunda, a political consolidation that had been slowly evolving since the time of Sanjaya and Tarusbawa. This dual lineage empowered him with legitimacy in the eyes of both Western and Eastern Sundanese territories, a rare and powerful combination in the volatile political landscape of the early 11th century. His coronation took place in the sacred court of Pakuan Pajajaran, likely accompanied by intricate rituals, chants from Brahmin priests, and blessings from spiritual leaders. This ceremony, possibly recorded in now-lost copperplate inscriptions or orally preserved in Pantun and Kakawan, would have been a majestic affair. Jayabhupati was formally declared the protector of the Sunda realm, the upholder of truth and the guardian of the God's will on earth. The coronation solidified his role not only as a political figure but also as a dharmic sovereign. Jayabhupati ascended the throne at a time of great tension and opportunity. Regional dynamics were shifting. New trading routes were being established along the northern coast of Java, bringing with them foreign influence and economic opportunity. At the same time, the rise of powerful neighbors such as the Kadiri kingdom in the east and Srivijaya's lingering influence in the west necessitated strategic diplomacy. Jayabhupati's early reign was marked by efforts to fortify internal governance and reassert Sunda's cultural independence. One of Jayabhupati's first decrees was likely centered around legal reforms. Inspired by the ancient Indian texts he had studied in youth, he issued edicts promoting the concept of Rajadharma, royal duty aligned with cosmic law. He reinforced land grants to Brahmins, protected sacred groves, and ensured that temples received the patronage necessary for their continued operation. He also regulated trade in a way that enriched the kingdom without sacrificing moral governance. His dynastic claims and governance style set the tone for a golden era of culture and religion in the Sunda realm. By combining the authority of his noble descent with moral clarity and strategic foresight, Jayabhupati quickly established himself as a stabilizing force. His rule was not just about asserting control, it was about nurturing the soul of the kingdom. Under his watch, literature, religion, and architecture began to blossom in a distinctly Sundanese manner, informed by Indian influence but deeply rooted in local traditions. Prabhu Rakeyan Jayabhupati's reign is immortalized in Sundanese history through one of the most crucial and well-preserved inscriptions from the 11th century, the Sanghyang Tapak inscription, dated to 1030 CE. This copperplate artifact offers a rare and invaluable glimpse into Jayabhupati's character, religious devotion, and administrative brilliance. It reveals not only a devout monarch, but also a ruler conscious of law, territory, and divine will. The Sanghyang Tapak inscription, written in Old Javanese using the Kawi script, indicates Jayabhupati's deep reverence for Shaivite Hinduism. It documents his decision to designate a sacred area, Sanghyang Tapak, on the banks of the Sipamali River, now known as the Sikati or Sibadak River in Sukabumi, as a protected spiritual site. This area was declared off-limits to hunters and commoners, signaling his efforts to preserve spiritual sanctity and ecological balance. It shows Jayabhupati as a guardian not just of his people, but of nature and divine places. Beyond spiritual matters, the inscription subtly reflects Jayabhupati's grasp of geopolitics. By asserting control over Sanghyang Tapak, located at a strategic inland pass near river routes, he was reinforcing his control over a vital trade corridor connecting coastal regions to the interior. His policies balanced religious ideals with economic prudence, as securing such nodes allowed the Sunda kingdom to tax trade flows while preserving cultural identity. Diplomatically, Jayabhupati maintained a delicate balance with his neighbors. It is believed he fostered respectful relations with Srivijaya in the west and with the emerging powers of East Java. While Sundanese pride emphasized independence, Jayabhupati was too wise to provoke unnecessary conflict. Instead, he focused on internal consolidation, land management, and temple patronage, creating alliances through marriage and religious unity rather than warfare. His court in Pakuan Pajajaran flourished with Brahmins, advisors, and poets. Jayabhupati commissioned texts and inscribed copper plates that elevated the Sundanese scriptural and historical record. It was under his rule that the royal court adopted more Sanskritized forms of address, titles, and rituals, further entwining local governance with the broader Indianized Southeast Asian cultural sphere. His devotion to Shiva Mahadeva became the spiritual and ideological backbone of his reign, fusing mystical dharma with royal responsibility. During the reign of Prabhu Rakeyan Jayabhupati, the Sunda kingdom experienced a cultural blossoming that intertwined sacred belief, royal duty, and mysticism. As a deeply devout follower of Shaivism, Jayabhupati did not merely view religion as a personal conviction, but as an essential foundation of statecraft. His reign was defined by the fusion of spiritual governance and ethical rulership, and he became known as a Rajarsi, a king sage who embodied both temporal and spiritual wisdom. The king's court was a beacon of religious and cultural life. It welcomed Brahmin scholars, priests, poets, and sculptors who contributed to a growing body of Sundanese Sanskritic literature and art. Under Jayabhupati, temples dedicated to Shiva Ganesha and local deities adorned key sanctuaries across Pakuan and beyond. These temples were built not merely as sites of worship, but as spiritual centers for meditation, initiation, and the recitation of sacred texts. The architectural styles reflect both indigenous traditions and influences from broader Indic civilizations, especially those from India and Srivijaya. Jayabhupati was also known for retreating into the wilderness for tapa brata, austerities, aligning himself with the path of the rishi. Legends recount how he fasted in seclusion near Mount Salak and the sacred forests around the Sipamali River, where he received divine visions and blessings. It is believed that during one such period of meditation, he envisioned the future of his kingdom and issued new dharma-based decrees focused on justice and sustainability. His deep connection to nature and spirituality elevated him to semi-divine status in later Sundanese folklore. One of his enduring legacies was the codification of territorial sanctity through royal decrees, such as that preserved in the Sanghyang Tapak inscription. These declarations emphasized the king's role as a cosmic mediator who protected sacred zones and channeled divine order into the material world. Jayabhupati's legal framework also imposed penalties on those who defiled consecrated lands, further intertwining law with morality and religious reverence. As cultural life flourished, music, theater, and storytelling gained royal patronage. Shadow puppetry, wayang, and oral traditions began to integrate Shaivite cosmology with local myth. Through these mediums, stories of deities' ancestors and the king's own sacred mission were passed down. Jayabhupati, known for his eloquence, was said to deliver sermons and poetic speeches that resonated across generations. His rule left an indelible mark on the Sundanese spiritual landscape, where the divine and the earthly found harmony under his enlightened kingship. King Rakeyan Jayabhupati was not only a sage ruler, but also a master of diplomacy and statecraft. His reign marked a significant moment of Sunda's cautious interaction with neighboring polities, including the declining influence of the Srivijaya thalassocracy in Sumatra and the emerging powers in East Java. Though he avoided open conflict, Jayabhupati engaged in astute alliances, focusing on strengthening regional trade, cultural exchange, and religious concord. His spiritual reputation and fair governance earned him the title Dharma Raja among foreign emissaries, signifying a ruler who governs by dharma. One of the most significant diplomatic initiatives was the establishment of peaceful relations with the Kahuripan kingdom, ruled by Erlangga in East Java. Through emissaries and sacred gifts such as ritual daggers, palm leaf manuscripts, and crafted stone statues, Jayabhupati fostered a mutual respect rooted in shared Shaivite ideals. It is even said that the two kingdoms exchanged scholars and scribes, blending Old Sundanese and Old Javanese philosophical treatises that later influenced regional law codes. Central to Jayabhupati's authority was a collection of sacred heirlooms, pusaka, believed to hold spiritual and ancestral power. Among these were the Gada Chung Wanara, a mace believed to have belonged to the legendary prince of Galuh, the Keris Kalagondang, imbued with the essence of mountain spirits, and the Kakra Pasupati, a wheel-shaped emblem associated with divine kingship. These heirlooms were not only symbols of temporal rule, but were believed to confer legitimacy and invincibility. Jayabhupati personally led annual processions in which the pusaka were bathed and venerated, further reinforcing the sacrality of his kingship. Jayabhupati's eventual decision to abdicate the throne was driven not by weakness, but by spiritual ascension. Feeling that his earthly mission was fulfilled, he convened his council of Brahmins and princes to formally pass the Rajamandala, the sacred mandate of rule, to his chosen successor, a son or nephew whose identity remains debated among historians. Before abdicating, Jayabhupati secured oaths of loyalty from regional governors and inscribed a spiritual legacy charter, parts of which were preserved in temple inscriptions across West Java. After stepping down, Jayabhupati retreated to a hermitage in the highlands, near modern-day Gunung Gede, where he is said to have continued his tapasya until the end of his life. This transition from ruler to rishi was not merely symbolic. It shaped the Sundanese model of rulership for generations, in which wisdom and detachment were esteemed over conquest. His relics, teachings, and pusaka would be venerated in later courts, ensuring that the memory of Rakeyan Jayabhupati lived on not just as a king, but as a dharma-bearing sage and divine guardian of Sunda. The twilight of Rakeyan Jayabhupati's life was spent in deep meditation, seclusion, and scriptural composition. It is believed that he spent his final years in the mist-covered hermitages of Gunung Gede or Gunung Salak, sacred mountains that were already revered as abodes of ancestral spirits. Here, in a humble cave or forest dwelling known in Sundanese tradition as a pertapan, the former king transitioned fully into the life of a rishi, holy sage, gaining the spiritual title Rakeyan Jayabhupati. His disciples recorded that he achieved moksha, or liberation upon death, a rare spiritual feat indicating that his soul had merged with the divine essence. His passing was not seen as an end, but as a transfiguration. Local myths say that a celestial procession of Dewa, gods, came to greet him, and his body dissolved into light, leaving only his crown and prayer beads behind. These relics were reportedly enshrined in a Konku shrine on the slopes of Mount Gedi, which later became a pilgrimage site. Oral traditions preserved in the Pantun Sunda and temple chants elevate him to the level of a deified ancestral king, a protector spirit known to aid rulers in dreams and visions. Geographically, the legacy of Jayabhupati is still etched into the land. The Sanghyang Tapak inscription, located near the Sakati River in Sukabumi, not only stands as a monument to his piety and legal reforms, but also functions as a spiritual landmark. Surrounding villages bear names like Sibadak Jayabhakti and Sukaraja, all possibly derived from the historical and mythical aura surrounding his reign. Inscriptions and ruins bearing his name have been found along ancient trade paths between Bogor and Pelabu and Ratu, suggesting the breadth of his cultural influence. In modern Sundanese identity, Rakeyan Jayabhupati is remembered as a golden paragon of kingship, just, wise, devout, and spiritually transcendent. He bridges the world of political history and sacred myth, admired not only for his administration and legal codes, but also for his mysticism and humility. His name is often invoked in Sundanese wayang performances, temple rituals, and academic discourses as a standard for ideal governance. Today, regional historians and cultural activists continue to explore his contributions to Sundanese literature, temple art, and spiritual thought. His legacy is a unique blend of statecraft and sanctity, making him not just a figure of the past, but a continuing spiritual presence in the cultural heart of West Java. In every mountain mist, temple bell, and ancient script, the spirit of Rakeyan Jayabhupati continues to resonate, silent, enduring, and deeply rooted in the land of Sunda.